It was Donald Trump's Washington walk amid the chaos. Soon after addressing the nation and telling Americans he was their president of law and order, Trump strolled from the safety of the White House to St. John's Church, a symbolic church frequently visited by past presidents. The president, clutching a Bible, stood outside the church for a photo opportunity. But it was much more than that. It was powerful, it was defiant, it was Donald Trump. But what message did it send to a nation divided and hurting? Bob Carr's a former Foreign Affairs Minister and very keen follower of American politics. I spoke to him a short time ago. Bob, thank you for your time. From what I can see, it was Donald Trump's moment to draw a line in the sand and symbolically say to his voter base, enough.
It is his voter base, Carl. 81% of conservative Christians, that is born-again evangelicals, white, 81% of them voted for Trump in 2016. That was the highest level of support that any Republican has had from that part of the conservative voting base in America. So he was out there with the symbolism of the Bible, standing in front of the church, saying, I'm an upholder of your values and we stand for law and order.
This just doesn't happen. The president doesn't go anywhere without something being pre-planned. It was highly calculated.
Highly calculated and quite inspired when it came to saying to one part of his base, I'm with you. There are other parts of his base, the white working class, who felt that they were disenfranchised under the Democrats. Another part of his base are the gun owners of America through the National Rifle Association and in other pro-gun owning groups upholding their Second Amendment rights. He'll appeal to them as well. This is a fanatical drive to construct a majority that will hold on November 3 and keep him in the White House for another 4 years.
All in all, a pretty clever campaign stunt from that perspective.
Yeah, and we've got to brace ourselves for what happens next. What worries me is that America seems more or less due, and I hate to talk in these terms, for another mass shooting. And just imagine the effect on the streets if it were to be like the Charleston church massacre when 9 African Americans were killed, including the pastor of that church in 2015. If it's a white supremacist, a white nationalist who walks into a black church and indulges another mass shooting, the effect in this climate of pandemic and race riots and focus on death through violence, in this case police violence, would be galvanising, and American institutions would be challenged to hold under that threat.
All hell would break loose, wouldn't it? I mean, if the vision and law and order are his campaign platforms, I mean, what chance, Bob, is peace then for America right now?
Well, the danger is that we could be headed for a close result, a disputed result, a messy result in those November elections. It could be an election where, once again, as last time, the Democrats get a majority of the popular vote, but are cheated of victory in the Electoral College. Don't forget, Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Trump in 2016. If it goes to the Supreme Court, as the disputed election of 2000 went to the Supreme Court, remember the mess in Florida, you're going to have outrage by a large section of America. I don't think, we certainly haven't seen an America, Carl, this divided since the Civil War of the mid-19th century.
Bob, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison's got a pretty close relationship with Donald Trump. Does this make that relationship all the more delicate now?
I think we've got to maintain it. Carl, I think we've just got to develop our links with the other side of American politics, because you've got to say there's a fair chance of this president being dumped. While he's the president, we deal with him, but we can't trust his judgment. And we've got to be careful that he doesn't lead us into a war between now and November 3. And we've got to be alert to that very real danger.
OK, does this help today or hinder his re-election chances come November?
I would say it helps them because he's reaching out to people who voted for him last time and he's giving them a reason to stay welded on to the Trump campaign. But expect more of this divisive positioning by this president. Not a word from him in support of the family of George Floyd, even though the brother of the murdered black man, the brother, stood there and appealed for rioters to stop their illegal behaviour. A unifying president would have held that up and praised it and attempted to reach all Americans, no matter what their politics, and given a message of healing. He's completely incapable of doing that.
It's incredibly sad. This is a great country.
Yeah, all of us, all Australians, have been so fond of America over the years. I became fond of it by looking at its history and its culture, its popular music, the astonishing output of Hollywood over the decades. We're all touched by America at its best. But I think we've got to remind ourselves this also has elements of a failing state and a somewhat neurotic nation that could do great damage to the world because of the divisive, polarised nature of its domestic politics. We've got to be attempting to get messages through to America that it's got to cool it in the world. We don't want to be plunged into war because this disturbed and angry and nationalistic president sees that as a way of getting re-elected for another 4 years.
Good to talk to you, Bob. Thanks for your time.